everybody. Hope you're having a good night. In honor so, of Halloween, which is in 5 hours, which the first part of Halloween. Let's do some creepy stuff. Mason will come off the Grieving. Cameron, you're one fucked up person. I always love. Let's get reading, shall we? It's been a while. I always loved Cartoon Network. When I was growing up, it was my favorite channel to watch. Even today it has some good shows like Adventure Time and Regular Show. One of the newest shows on the network, The Amazing World of Gumball, is a cute, mildly entertaining show. Not really my cup of tea. It's a little immature, but my little brother seems to like it a lot. One day I was watching Adult Swim when I realized I'd been up so late I haven't even kept track of time. It was already 4 a.m. I don't recall ever watching as this late, so I stayed awake to see what would happen when it ended. Little Bummer showed up at the bottom of the screen during the commercial break. It said a special episode of the bumper. Episode of Amazing World of Gumball was about to come on. I was a little confused about the episode of a very popular new show coming out on this early, but I was bored inside. I would watch it, thinking it might come on later in the day so I could spoil it for my brother. Sorta mean, I know. The flashy angelic intro theme played, though it was played a little differently than I recall. The music was different a little. The show's logo wasn't animated. Its colors were done rather sloppily and almost like something a little kid would do in MS Paint. I noted, assuming that it would be done for this special episode. The title of the episode was The Grieving. A sort of satire title, but I didn't really pay attention too much. It began with Gumball, the show's 12-year-old protagonist, standing alone facing a corner in dimly lit classroom. He looked absolutely miserable, a far cry from a cheerful demeanor he usually had. There was nobody else in the room. Not even his best friend and adopted brother Darwin the goldfish. The windows of the room clearly showed night sky outside. I was really starting to get confused. Why would he be at school at night? And why would he be staying in the corner all alone and all sad? After what seemed like a minute of Gumball standing somewhere in the corner, the scene suddenly changed. We were in Gumball's house. Once again, the scene was silent and a little disquieting. Richard, the Gumball's enormous rabbit father, walks in the kitchen. He looks even more miserable than Gumball had in the previous scene. Richard wasn't wearing his usual attire. He was just in a fancy black suit. A little uncharacteristic of him. He's usually a slob. He slumps down onto the sofa, stops sobbing intensely, sounded like somebody who had just lost something important. I was starting to get a little creeped out. Where was the silly, fun cartoon I usually look forward to watching with my little brother? This was completely different. I was beginning to think this had been something creators did as an experiment or something. A test of animation or sound perhaps. Though it couldn't have been. Aside from the open thing, which was still different from the final show. The episode had been much quieter than it usually was. The subtle sounds and very little music, and the animation was not something to write home about either. It was done a bit like amateur Flash on Newgrounds. The character designs were somewhat sloppy and rushed looking, and the real life backgrounds used for the show looked different. As confused and somewhat frightened I was, for some reason I kept watching. Poor Rachel was still sobbing on the sofa when the front door opened suddenly, making me jump as I bit at such loud noise. And come on, mother's Nicole, blue cat like him, stepped in. Like Richard, she wasn't wearing her usual attire. For some reason, she was dressed in a black dress and was wearing a pretty black hat to match. Nicole sat down on the couch to comfort her husband, although she was looking a bit sad in herself. At this point, Richard's crying has begun to get more pained and miserable sounding. This wasn't the normal cartoon crying on the show. It's more realistic and almost depressing crying. I almost felt like sobbing myself. Finally, what seemed like that was the sad scene at the home ended. As they shifted back to the school, we weren't in Gumball's classroom this time. We were in Principal Brown's office. Nicole and Richard were using there in their usual clothes, looking more normal and happy than they were before, but slightly worried. The Principal Brown, however, looked extremely sad. He quietly and summarily informed them that their children, Anais and Darwin, were not present after lunch earlier today. They haven't been seen at all the rest of the day. Nicole was instantly furious at him. She was spouting various insults and calls at him. I don't even think they were made it on a more mature program like a regular show. I was laughing at this because it seemed sort of funny for Nicole to flip out in this sort of manner, start swearing like a sailor in a G-rated cartoon. But my outlook soon changed when Principal Brown told her something else, and she finally quieted down. My eyes began to tear up as he eventually informed them that they were eventually found, but they had not been found alive. He then went into graphic, nearly nauseating details describing how their bodies were found, and the parents sitting in utter shock. I hardly believed what was happening. How could such a cheery and fun kids show be talking such a dark and twisted turn? I was considering turning the television off, but I was too scared to be left in the dark by now, nearly frozen by fear and disturbed intensely at the terrible things that he was saying. Another flashback. The scene was earlier that day, and the animation in the scene was worse than ever. I remember it clearly, but he began his recollection by saying that school had called the police department when they first turned up missing, believing that kids had simply ran off and decided to skip school. They said it was very uncharacteristic. Both Darwin and Anais did go skipping school like delinquents. Darwin was a little naive and a bit distant, but he was a good kid and wouldn't have even dreamed of doing something like that. Anais would even be less likely to run away. She was a straight-A student, despite being only 4, which also troubled the police, seeing a defenseless 4-year-old was missing, as well as an older boy, who has been thoroughly checked. So the police started to search a heavily wooded area outside the school. It took a little time for the police to discover the horrifying fate of Anais. So, small clearing outside the school. Anais' head was found in a small box. You would likely have expected something like that be shown in a show's cursory art style. There's nothing like that. Realistic blood was covered the box inside and out, while Anais' head was done in a normal style, but was drenched in blood and some other fluids. Not all of them hers, apparently. There was no involved seemingly written in her blood. Never stated during the episode what exactly was written, though apparently led the rest of her remains and Darwin led to the rest of her remains and Darwin's heavily mutilated corpse. Remember most about the scene of how out of place it seemed. All the blood and gore from Darwin and Anais' slaughter and dismemberment were done in a very realistic and disturbing way. It looked like a scene that had been taken from a crime scene photograph. It and done by a professional, not something from a cartoon. The way the scene was animated was different from most of the show as well. You may know that the characters in this series are done in vastly differing anime styles, from flash animation to CGI. I think they are even character. Oh wait, I think there's even character done by somebody putting the chin upside down to make a face. This particular scene wasn't like anything I ever seen in the show. Every little detail on Darwin's face was clearly illustrated. He looked a little like a zombie. His face was very pale, and his eyes had been gouged out by somebody. And Anais fared no better, or what was left of her. She was naked, and her stomach had been slit open. Her intestines were strewn out around the trees and bushes in the woods, done again in a very morbid and realistic style. I was feeling very ill by the time this incredibly disturbing flashback had come to end, so I quickly ran to the bathroom to vomit. I was feeling a little better after obstructing, so I had realized that I had good timing and ran to the bathroom during the commercial. I noticed the show had been running twice as long. It usually ran for 11 minutes, but this episode was running for about 30. By then I was wondering if the information on the Grieving on IMDb or something. So while the commercial was still playing, I looked up some information on Google. Nothing came up. No information remotely similar to the plot or name of this episode existed. Now incredibly scared, I wonder if anybody else was watching. I quickly dialed my brother Larry. Asked him to turn on Cartoon Network to see if he was seeing the same shit I was seeing. He's pretty mad when I woke him up at this hour, but he's a nice guy. Told me he would see for me. I thanked him and stayed online as the show came back from the commercial break. The scene had thankfully panned away from the horrific sight of the children mutilated, and it was back to the principal's office. I asked Larry if he'd seen some cartoon animals talking or crying, since that's what they were doing on my TV. To my surprise, he said that he saw nothing like that. He said it was a rerun of old Looney Tunes short. Another shock, I dropped the phone and ran to the TV and turned it off, and as hard as I pressed the buttons, it wouldn't shut off at all. I tried every single button, but none of them did things. I tried unplugging the whole thing as well, but nothing worked. The TV stayed on, no matter what. Literally hung up, assuming I was playing a joke or something. I guess I was alone once again. My door was locked from the outside somehow. The door to my bathroom was not locked as well. It seemed as I had no choice but to call the police, and some other family members were gone that night. It was the reason I could stay up so late and watch the dog swim in the first place. I hurried and dialed the number. I accidentally dropped my cell phone into my cup of Pepsi. I was very scared. I had no choice but to finish the episode. I turned on all the lights in my room and got under the covers, hiding like my little brother does when I make him watch scary movies with me. Apparently I missed a bit, but Gumball's parents were still talking to Principal Brown, so not that much. Nicole asked him if Gumball was alright. Apparently she had to remember him when Principal Brown told her that what had happened to Darwin and Anais. He looked slightly confused and shocked for a moment, and explained to her that he thought Gumball was out sick today, and he spent the day at home by himself with a stomach bug. Nicole screamed and wailed, while Richard quietly told him in a very out-of-character voice that he thought Gumball had got on the bus this morning, but it didn't seem that way. Police were called once again to search the building and the small forest outside of Elmore Junior High. They found him in Miss Simeon's classroom, hanging by a noose, blood-covered knife behind him, and blood covering his clothes. Episode ended with a shot of Gumball's dead body hanging there in the corner, fading to black. Credits rolled silently. Pause again. Only hung up. Covering his clothing, the episode ended shots. Credits rolled, usually slow and weren't that fun to watch either. A little creepy, just plain white scrolling on the background. I usually recognize Ben Balkay's name as he was creator show. The rest of people I never heard of. The copyright notice at the end said Cartoon Network Studios 2001, which was incredibly odd, seeing the new show was new for 2011. After that, all that was over the screen went to static for a split second, during which some creepy and shocking video clips have been shown in between static intervals. I can remember them all very clearly. The first was a picture of a person in the plague doctor outfit. Those always scared me for some reason. Then the way a person in the suit was filmed just as bad. A red light, something that freaked me out. What was shown over the clip. Next, what was seemed like a video being played very quickly, over and over. A kitten's face being squished by a woman wearing high heels, which was strange because it was so-called friend of mine sent me a picture yesterday of a cat being stepped on and killed, similar to the kitten in this video. In the video, the one that disturbed me the most, made me want to both cry and vomit my guts out, was my little brother, or at least a small child that looked similar to him, being shot in the face by a person who looked like my father. You could clearly see the child's brain and blood splatter on the wall. I began to sob uncontrollably after the traumatizing clip, so much that I passed out. When I woke up, my door was unlocked and my television was turned off. I went to call police on my home phone and my kitchen to report what I seen. Very disturbing things on my TV, and my doors had been locked. When I arrived, they couldn't find anything like what I remember from this early. My internet history was even cleared. They were angry at me, soon I just had a bad nightmare. When I was sure I had one, thankfully one of the officers felt bad for me, took me out to a small dinner so I could recollect my thoughts. At the dinner, I remembered that my family was visiting my aunt. They were supposed to be back by noon or so. It was already 11, so the officer and I drove back, only to find a whole squad of police cars, even some government agents at my house. They explained to me that my little brother was missing and my mother and father were major suspects. I was freaking out trying to tell them about the disturbing clip of the boy who looked like my brother being shot in the head, but they wouldn't listen. I stayed with my older brother lately, who wouldn't believe me either, so insistent that all he saw was old Looney's cartoon. Nothing at all creepy or weird. The cops eventually told me that they would contact Turner Broadcasting and tell them about the incident. Okay, last part. It's very short. Station of Turner Broadcasting came to my cousin's house to talk to me in private about what I seen and experienced that night. He's very kind, but also seemed little like sort of a friend. After I told him all that I remember, he agreed to play back days programming when the incident with the gumball. To my shock, all I wore was an old cartoon shirt, nothing less. I hysterically sobbed and moaned that what I had experienced and the scene was completely real, but nobody listens. Eventually I discovered Ben Canita, so I sent a message to got the shot. One thing, how in the heck did you find that? I never, ever thought I would think about that old shame again. Don't tell anybody this, Sarah. Yes, that's my name. But the Mason Ward of Gumball goes back further than you know. I used to have a really boring job as a teen. I sketched little drawings of the walks and said my friend. Episode you saw was never supposed to be seen by everyone but me and a few friends of mine. It was a very, very awful thing to do, but we made the episode as a joke. A guy from my old job who hated everybody had lost a child to a crazy serial killer who was apparently still out there and somewhere. Anyway, we made it. That's for the next video. Anyways, we made it so we could make fun of how he usually came when he came to work, usually crying like a fool, which is why you saw Mr. and Mrs. Watterson friends so much in the episode. I know I decently saw what I did, which is why I tried to bury that stupid thing years ago. I literally went to the courtsides with my mates and dug a hole and buried it. I don't get it though. It's how you describe the blood and gut scene. We didn't have a scene with Darwin's and Anani's bodies being found. All that happens to episodes is the parents being informed that the kids are found dead and they're crying like crazy. We didn't draw anything in an episode like that at all. We're not that sick. My theory is the lunatic who killed the man's child found the tape we buried, watched it, heavily edited it. He then hijacked the local TV station near blah blah blah. I blocked out the name of my city. I'm paranoid enough. It's a small town somehow and got the episode on air on your local TV station. Now, why your brother couldn't see, I have no idea. Why it seems you're the only one who saw it, I have no idea either. Sorry, but I just don't know. Now for an explanation, you and have been watching the clips at the end. I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I'm deeply sorry from the bottom of my heart. But I don't know why those clips were aired. I just don't. I'm sorry, I really am. But me and my mates were just the one who made the scenes where Richard and Nicole were crying. That's all. I'm sorry, Sari. I'm deeply sorry. Best wishes, Ben, whatever, and everybody involved with the grieving. Holy shit, that was fucking demonic. But, I'm gonna have to cut this short because I've been doing this way too long. I'll see you guys later. Goodbye. Have a good time.